Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. Hey, I was coming across one of my newsletters recently where it was the anniversary of Colin Powell's death. He died in 2021, and it seems like it was just yesterday. In a lot of ways, it seems like he's still here. But he's said a lot of important things along the way. But one that he mentioned was this: always do your best. Even when no one else is looking, you should always be doing your best. Don't disappoint yourself. I just think that's good words to live by Colin Powell. I worked in the media industry for most of my career. If you're a regular listener on Coast Vue, you know that. I've had the opportunity to have some good success along the way that enabled me to retire young and ultimately to come in here and start doing Coast Vue after about almost 5 years of retirement. I was thinking recently about the people that I came in contact with while in my career, and thinking about the people that I've had the opportunity to talk to here on Coast Vue. Over 700 conversations over nearly 3 years. And they all share some very similar traits. So this past Monday, I was having a conversation with Cuz Strickland from Mossy Oaks. People in the outdoor community know Mossy Oaks, and they especially know Cuz Strickland from his outdoor shows. But Cuz joined me on SuperTalk Outdoors on the SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, and we talked about specifically, actually, these common traits that we both see in people who have extraordinary success, in his case, that he's seen in the outdoor industry. And I decided to kind of write down my thoughts and begin to sort of crystallize them a bit. And, I'll be sharing components of this in future shows, but I called it to win. And what I came to understand is that among the more successful people that I have had the opportunity to get to know, who have achieved really extraordinary success in their lives, they always operate from the point of view of success is the only option. That's what usually inspires most of us about them. They reek this focus. Here's the advice that they would probably give you. You have to go all in. You have to be willing, as I call it, to blow up the mothership, which is to say there can't be a fallback plan. Fallback plans are usually for people who are not committed. They're usually for people who expect to lose, maybe. You must be driven forward by the reality that there's not a mothership. And there's only the concrete clarity that comes from the goal that is in front of you. That's all that matters. Again, there's no other place to land. You must be willing to put yourself in a position that leaning forward with goals are what drives you. But you're also, and you have to learn to live with this, that you're also full of uncertainty and fear and doubt. It's a place where ambiguity is both your friend and your enemy. It's a place where you're forced to make sense of it all, because with that ambiguity means you've got to make it as clear as possible in the moment. It's this extreme focus of doing that ultimately gives you hope. It's a 24-hour, 7-day place. The goal in front of you is driving you, it's pushing you. All of your experience and your passion and your energy and your skills and your drive and your connections, your relationships, your money, and your future, everything is on the line. Think of yourself as a 12-cylinder engine hitting all 12 cylinders. It's almost, when you get in that zone, it's a near emotionless drive. There's an extreme discipline. The fact that what is in front of you is really hard, it doesn't seem to matter, because that focus helps you overcome fear. Successful people also define perseverance. I think of successful people who have overcome disabilities, especially, as defining perseverance. I think of Andrea Bocelli. He's my favorite tenor. I can just hear that beautiful voice as I'm speaking now. He's not just a musician. He's a writer. He's also a musical producer. He has sold more than 80 million records, and he's been blind since he was 12. He was endowed early in his life with the real spirit of what he referred to as innate improvement. Early in his life, he decided to focus entirely on music. He also studied law along the way, which I always found incredible. He defined perseverance. I think of Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1991. He was only 29 years old. I didn't realize it until I looked back and studied that. But it didn't stop him from acting, and he also started a foundation. His foundation has now raised over $1 billion for Parkinson's disease research. And now that the disease is in the advanced stages, Michael J. Fox does not stop. He continues to maintain a spirit of improvement, and he continues to define perseverance. There are so many examples of successful people here in coastal Mississippi who have overcome the odds. Here in coastal Mississippi, one in particular that I've watched for many years is a community leader that has not only defied the odds, but she has defined perseverance. Her story is incredibly inspiring. I want to welcome to Coast Vue my friend Jeanne Luckey. And Jeannie, I really look forward to telling your story. How you doing this morning?
I'm good, Ricky. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I hope I have a story to tell.
You have an amazing story to tell. Listen, we'll start with this because we're gonna have a little small talk in the beginning to kind of break the ice, and then we're gonna take a big step back and tell your story. But I'm just curious, if someone were to just ask you what drives you to be so involved in building a better Mississippi, what is it that drives you?
I grew up here, and I love South Mississippi in particular. Just to leave a better footprint than there was when I came is what drives me. It's nothing really deep or special. It's just I want to leave things better than what I found them, and I think that could be a goal that everybody just looked at. If you just leave things a little better than you found them, it'd make a huge difference in this world.
Well, you heard how I started the show. Those successful qualities are those qualities of successful people, and what perseverance is all about. But what did you think about as I was telling that sort of opening, using those opening words?
Well, first of all, I find it. I've always found it kind of odd. Michael J. Fox and I have the exact same birthday, same year, everything. So we're the same age. So he really is an amazing example of perseverance. Just how he has done, and I can't even compare my disability probably to his. I always thought about it this way. Even after my car wreck, I realized that every day I would get a little better, and I was so thankful that every day that I live, I get a little better instead of go downhill. I go uphill, and so I just kind of look at it like that. Every day I get out of bed and I do what I need to do, and I'm a little better than I was the day before. And so that's kind of just my goal. Just be a little better than I was the day before.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning, before we actually started the show, that in looking back on your life, I was reminded that Hurricane Katrina hits, you lose your house. 3 days later, you have your wreck, and it changed your life forever. And I can't imagine, with all this adversity we were all facing, for you to have faced that at that time, such a life-changing, Katrina by itself was a life-changing moment for just about everyone in coastal Mississippi. And then for that to happen to you, what a defining moment. But again, how inspiring it has been to watch you defy the odds and say, look, all you have to have, as you and I were discussing before the show started, is a great mind and a soul and a spirit to contribute. And that's what you need. And you've proven that over and over again, haven't you?
Well, I've done my best. And I thank the Lord every day that I do have my mind. Well, I think I have it. I've had 2 children, so I'm not sure I've got it all, but I have most of my mind, and I do have I have a spirit. I've had a lot of people around me that really encouraged me. It was not as easy at first as it might seem to be. The first couple of months were pretty rough, but I was really blessed. I have a great family. My children had no sympathy for me. They said, "Mom, just get up and do what you got to do." I have a wonderful assistant that's been with me for 17 years, and she did the same thing. And I guess I didn't have anybody to really feel sorry for me. So I didn't have much choice.
Yeah, it's interesting when you study Michael J. Fox's story. I didn't realize this, but when he was diagnosed with Parkinson, he had a period in his life where he was very depressed and even became an alcoholic at one point, and he had to sort of get past all of that in order to begin to look forward. And so I guess it's just kind of part of understanding the reality of the situation. But when we come back, we're gonna take a step back and talk a little bit about where Jeannie came from and where her inspiration, the values that she possesses today about giving back to the community, where all that came from. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my friend Jeanne Luckey with us, and I really enjoyed the first segment as we sort of laid the groundwork for what is really a great story of not only perseverance and defying the odds, but really about giving back to the community. If you look at Jeannie's background, obviously she's been incredibly involved in the Republican Party, and we'll get to that here in just a second, but held a number of leadership roles both locally in the state and, of course, in the nation. But she's given back in so many other ways. Her involvement in the College Board and other organizations have led her to being recognized by many organizations throughout her life. So we'll get into some of that as we tell her story. But Jeannie, tell me, where were you born, and tell me a little bit about your early life.
Well, I was actually born in a little place about 20 minutes from Starkville named Louisville. My dad was in the military, and my mother was there with her parents, and that's when I decided to make my debut into the world. And but we shortly thereafter moved to Biloxi, and so I grew up in Biloxi and went to Biloxi Public Schools and graduated from there, and then went on to Ole Miss. So a good family, and that was a family, and had great parents, and they really instilled in me the work ethic. There's no doubt about that. We had to do our part.
Hey, so did that include community involvement, or did that come later?
It kind of came later, but my dad particularly was involved in the community a good bit, and he worked a lot with Mardi Gras and the different organizations, and so he gave back. He was in the public schools, so anybody that's in the public school gives back, because they're never probably compensated for what they do, but they're compensated in other ways. So I did learn about doing things for the community, and we were very involved in our church community, and I was brought up in the church and learned a lot of values from that, certainly.
So you went to Ole Miss, and you ultimately got a degree in special ed. Did you go in thinking that's what you wanted to do, or was that something that came along a little bit later in your college studies?
No, I didn't go into it with that. I thought I wanted to major in child development, but Ole Miss didn't have a degree in child development, so they stuck me in the special ed classes, and I found out that I loved it, and I had a little bit of a gift for it. I enjoyed it. I like to be around my students and my, the folks that I taught, and I just really got a joy out of it. And I found out that really was a calling that I had. And so that was, sometimes God just puts you where you need to be.
Yeah. So you came out of Ole Miss. Did you immediately get into special education?
I did. I taught at what they call the North Mississippi Regional Center now, and I taught there for a few years. Al was in law school. Al's my husband. He was in law school. So I taught there for a few years, and then I moved to Ocean Springs, and I taught in Ocean Springs for a little bit of time before I had children. I taught about 6 years.
Wow, 6 years. Okay, so did getting involved, was it a byproduct of your post-injury situation, or was it something you were doing prior to Hurricane Katrina?
It was before Hurricane Katrina. When I quit teaching and I started staying home, I thought, I had time to give back. And I thought, well, then I should give back because I do have some time and I do have, and I didn't start out to be like, really involved. I just wanted to do some things. So I got involved in some local things, the Duchess Club, the Junior Auxiliary, started doing a little political work, and it just kind of grew from there. But I didn't start out for it to be a big deal. I just started out for it to, just to give back.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But you know what? It's independent of of Katrina and your accident. That's true with most young people, that they give back to the community. As John Harrison says, I love the quote that he says that young people learn to flex muscles by getting into the trenches as a volunteer or inside some organization and sort of learn from the ground up. Eventually they'll be chairman of these different organizations, but they just kind of work their way up. They don't know at the time when they get involved in these that it will sort of light a fire and years of involvement in the community, because you get inspired. What happens is you get involved, you get inspired by others, you're learning from them. There's a great connection that's created, not just a connection, but friendships and collaborations that I'm sure you look back on it. People that you're working with even today in the community are people that you knew back in the day. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the best things I ever did. And I say it's to give back, but man, I got a lot out of it too. I mean, I just really enjoyed being around people and meeting people. And I have friends from so many different walks of life now that I would have never known. So I kind of look at it as a little bit selfish because I really, I enjoy it, but it just has given me a lot too. It allows me to put my head on the pillow every night and think, wow, I did have a good day. It was a great day today.
It's inspiring to be able to work with others who are equally committed. The opportunity, I often say about this show, and it's really in a lot of ways it's like this show because you feel like you're hoping that you're making a contribution, but frankly, because of the people you come in contact with, like this conversation I'm having with you today, you end up getting more from it than you're giving. And that's what makes you, that's what sort of creates a fire in you to want to keep giving back. But it's true, isn't it?
It is. And, you're so right about young people. And I think young people today, they really understand the importance of community in a different way than we did. They really do. And I'm not sure where that comes from. I would like to think that we as the older generation that we've taught them, but I don't know if that's true. I think they just innately just want to be part of the community and do something for others. And that's a fabulous thing about our young people. I see it day after day after day in my children's friends, the things they're doing for their communities that I probably never dreamed about at that age.
Yeah, I've seen it too. I see so many young people, they're stepping up. Well, so Todd Trenchard made the point the other day. I had the opportunity to visit with him, and he's made the point that in a lot of ways, Katrina sort of unleashed a lot of this, because before Katrina, people were more in silos. After Katrina, the silos were obliterated, and we had to work together to rebuild this community. And the reverberation of that, of the leaders that were, thousands of people that were amassed around that recovery effort, and how that influenced younger people along the way. And then, frankly, now those younger people are influencing the next generation. It's, there's a lot. There's a lot of bad that comes from something like Hurricane Katrina. The fact is, we can't do anything about the fact that it hit us. But what we can do in the aftermath of a storm like that is find the good in it. And the character that was revealed by the storm, what we learned about each other, what we learned about when all socioeconomic and political stuff's out, obliterated, how we work together and how we love each other and love our neighbors and worry about our families. And it's a common trait. And I think that made us a better community. It helped it helped illuminate what I often refer to, President Bush's 1,000 points of light. It actually helped illuminate that in ways that a lot of communities don't get a chance to see. And here we are 17 years later, and it still, is inspiring people. And it's so true, though, isn't it?
Yeah. The storm, things like the storm, that we can't do anything about, they're kind of the great equalizer. They put us all on the same level for a little while, and we're able to sympathize and empathize with other people in a way that we never would be able to otherwise. And so that's just, that's we it's amazing what we've learned from that. And you're right, that may very well be why some of our young people are so more willing to give back to the community than we ever dreamed.
I often referred after the storm as Katrina being an equal opportunity destroyer, an equal opportunity destroyer. I have a friend of mine who's a doctor who lives around the corner from me, lives on the water. He didn't have flood insurance. He, his business was also flooded, and he didn't have adequate insurance, and he literally lived off bologna sandwiches for quite a while. I mean, he's recovered now, thank God, but he started from scratch again. Hey, listen, when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Jeanne Luckey, and we'll start the next segment with talking a little bit more about how her accident, ultimately changed her and how it built inside her a drive to want to live and to want to give back. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my friend Jeanne Luckey with us today, and it's just an inspiring conversation. Again, she's worked in the community in so many different ways and held leadership roles in so many different ways. And, you look back on her past, which I mentioned a little bit of that, but obviously the Republican Party, but YMCA, she was recognized greatly, actually, in her YMCA involvement, Salvation Army, College Board. The list goes on and on. That's what we know about. There's no telling how many people she's inspired and the work she's done because of the way she leads with her disability is to define perseverance and define the odds. And it's an important story for people to understand. Jeannie, when you look back and think about how, of course, Katrina hits, 3 days later you have your accident, are you able to remember the days after all of this happened and kind of where you were in your thinking about all that, or is it a blur to you?
Well, I knew pretty quick after my accident that I probably had done some irreversible damage to my spine, and I actually knew before I ever got out of the car that I probably would never walk again. And so, I guess I knew it, and I kind of came to terms with it pretty quick. I just began to think, well, how am I going to do this? How, what's it going to be like? Am I going to be able to live? Am I going to be able to take care of my children, my family? And that was the first part of the processing, was just kind of figuring out how was it going to be, how I was going to do it. And, and then I was in and out of it for a few days in the hospital. I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks before I went to the spinal care injury specialty hospital in Atlanta, Shepherd's. And, and then there I just began to figure out what it was going, what I was going to do, how I was going to live. Was it going to be good? Was it going to be bad? I could do it either way. It's my choice. I could make it bad or I can make it good. And I think I decided pretty early on, I was just going to have to make it good because that's what I had, and that's
Where did that come from? Where did that come from? That it was already embedded deep in you? Or how do you look back at it and describe that commitment to persevere?
Well, like I said, I'm thankful that my family gave me a good faith, a strong faith, but I wouldn't say that was everything, because, when that happens, it kind of shakes your foundation. What's this about? Why am I here? why did this happen to me? Of course, you always want to know that. But a lot of those answers you're just never going to get. And so you just have to go, well, it's what I have. I hate to say this, it sounds so just flippant, but it's the cards I was dealt. I had to deal with them. So, and then I began to also look at other things. I realized we all have disabilities. Yes, mine's a lot more, probably more profound, but people have glasses. People can't hear. We all have a little disability. Mine just happens to be more evident than a lot of people's.
When I think about my time at Goodwill Industries, involved for more than 10 years and chairman of the board along the way, learned a lot about how the forms of disability. And because of that experience and what I learned during those times, when I read quotes that have something to do with this, it says something like this. It says, you never know what someone's going through. When you look at someone, you never know what they're going through. Sometimes it's obvious because you can see, in your case, you can see a wheelchair. Sometimes it's not obvious, and it can be devastating, but it's not obvious. Sometimes it could be relational. It could be something going on at work. It could be people fighting depression. You're right, Jeannie. Everybody has something. And I think too often, one of the things that I have come to understand about life is that we're busy. We're running through life so fast. We look at someone and we're too quick to judge them without really truly understanding what's really going on. And you're right. I think everybody has something. And that's a powerful way to say it, actually. In some ways, you're better off than lots of people that you might come in contact with. I know you don't look at it that way, but but when you have your sound mind and you have a great spirit, it helps you be much more empathetic to everyone, doesn't it?
It does. And like I often say, if everybody put their problems in a box, they'd probably choose their own back, because I look at my disability, and it's really kind of a small thing. I mean, yeah, I can't walk and I need a wheelchair, and I forget about it a lot of times. The worst time is when I go to get in the car and the van doesn't crank. Then I go, well, darn, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't walk. This is going to present a little challenge today. But most days I don't really think about it much anymore. I did at first, but I really don't think much about it anymore.
So we'll shift gears. It's amazing that you bring that point of view, but for someone who's overcome or defied the odds the way that you have, it seems to me that it would be someone with a spirit like you're describing, where let's only go forward, let's focus on, what you can do. And you decided pretty quickly that you're going to immerse yourself in activities that enable you to give back. And, you talk about the time when you were younger, before Katrina, and the work that you did and what you were learning about that. But boy, it laid a foundation for what was going to happen after you had your accident, to say, look, okay, I am where I am. Now I'm going to give everything I've got. And you decided that you were just going to stay busy and focus. And you did, didn't you?
I did. I just, I'd been home probably a week or two, and I had a Republican women's meeting that I needed to go to, and I wasn't going to go. And my assistant came in and she said, "Oh no, you're going to go. Get up." And she said, if you're not going to get up and go, then I'm not going to help you. She said, because she moved from Atlanta to help me. And she said, if you, and anybody that knows me knows her because she's always with me. And they said, but she said, if you're not going to get up, I'm going to go back to Atlanta. She said, because I didn't come down here to watch you lay in bed and die. And I, but that's the kind of thing you need. Yeah. And because you might have the spirit, but you need somebody else's spirit too. You need somebody else.
She's been with you 17 years, you said?
She has 17 years. Yes.
And what's her name?
Her name's Shondra. And I've only fired her once, and she's only quit once.
Tell me about her.
She is just, I've always laughed. She's my legs, but most days she's also my brains because she helps remind me what's going on. She was young when she first came. She was only, I'm not even sure. Let's see, she must have been about 35 when she came, which seems so young to me. But she had been trained at Shepherd's, and I said, "Will you come home with me just a little while and help me kind of get things together, and maybe help train somebody else to help me and that kind of thing?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Yeah, but I'll just take a little leave of absence and I'll move down and help you." And she's still on leave of absence, by the way, 17 years later. She just, she never went back, but she's great. She's great.
It's inspiring to hear her and the way she talked to you about urging you to go to that Republican women's meeting. But she's a star in this story, isn't she?
She is. She really is. And she's absolutely my best friend. I mean, my daughter told me one day, she said, you need a counselor. You know how children are. I said, "I don't need a counselor. I have one. I have Shondra."
I love that story.
She really is. She loves me. I mean, she would never let anything happen to me, which is the greatest thing, because you could have medical issues and stuff, but she makes sure that I'm healthy, and she makes me do what I'm supposed to do, which, I don't always like to do, but she just, she takes great care of me and is a great, but not only that, she just is a good person to have around, and my kids love her. My family loves her. She is family.
So it's not just a community, but you've been able to stay involved in family business and make contributions in that way. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what she does in her day job when she's not focused on, the community. And then we'll have a great final segment together. We'll see you with Jeanne Luckey after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We're visiting with my friend Jeanne Luckey, who is a real inspiration and been incredibly involved. I mean, we could go into her involvement in the Republican Party, which is extensive. We could literally take a show talking about her involvement with the Republican Party. But I'm going to resist the urge to go there since we only have 6 minutes and 50 seconds in this final segment. Just suffice it to say that she's a conservative who is actively involved in helping build a stronger Republican Party. What I'd like to do now, Jeanne, is just shift the gears a bit, because you've been involved in a lot of community organizations, but the one that really is one I would like to talk a little bit more about is the State College Board. That has got to have been a tremendous feeling to be involved in an organization that has so much impact for the future, really the future of this state. How do you look at your involvement in the College Board?
Wow. The College Board, for one thing, I was so honored when Governor Bryant called and asked me if I would consider serving, and I thought, wow, that's just an honor, because that makes such an impact on so many lives for a long, long time, for decades to come. Young people, well, not only young people that choose to go back to college, people that have had maybe part degrees, maybe they went for a year or two and they didn't finish, and just giving them the opportunity any way you can to give them a good education here in Mississippi, and hopefully to get them to stay in Mississippi and develop a love for it, so that they will want to be part of our community and part of our state.
Yeah, it's interesting. It manifests itself in so many different ways. You could talk about Ole Miss as it relates to the law school where my son went, and medical school, and all the other great educations. In Mississippi State, you could think about engineering. In fact, when I have so many people from the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks on my outdoor show, most of them went through Mississippi State, and they're so capable and they're so good at what they do, and they're literally transforming the outdoors enjoyment in this state in a way that will be there for our kids and our kids' kids to be able to see. You think about the work of Southern Miss in so many different dimensions. The blue economy obviously is a huge opportunity for coast of Mississippi. It's great to see them being connected in that way. Hey, you know what it blows my mind is when I spend time with Mary Graham, and I know that the community college system doesn't fall under the College Board, but when I spend time with her and learn that because of their strategic efforts, more than 50% of their students today are involved in non-traditional education. They're, workforce training. So, they have sophisticated diesel mechanic jobs that after 2 years of training, you could come out making $90,000 a year. But it's amazing to see where education is going. The traditional side of education, and then the opportunity for business and industry in the state to connect to these universities so that they can have the right and best trained employees coming out of college. You hear that all the time, don't you?
We do, and that's a real issue when people decide to go to college. What am I going to be able to do when I get out? And that's something we try to look at too. Different universities come to us. They have different ideas for degree programs. And we look at, is there going to be a job market for this? When somebody gets this degree, will they be able to make a living? Will they be able to make a living in Mississippi? And those are important issues when you start looking at what our universities do. And not only, people think, well, all we do is set tuition. And that's just such a small part of what we do. And our universities in Mississippi are a great deal. If you look at our universities in other states, we're just really a great financial investment.
Yeah, I often talk about the education I got at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and at Southern Miss. I was in pre-med for a while at one point, but then changed my degree to business. When I was in the corporate world, leading strategic planning for Knight Ridder, the company that owned the Sun Herald, and moving up with my career, I found out kind of early in my career that I could hang. That's the way I talk about it. When I'm in a room with Harvard and Yale graduates and felt like I had as good a foundation for having conversations, for being part of the debate and discussion as anyone. I got a great education here, and I know a lot of people feel the same way as well. What's interesting is you have to be more focused on making sure the education is going to be worthwhile, where they're going to be able to leave and have great careers. But also, as we focus more on all these student loans and where they're coming from and whether all the money that's got to be paid back and whatever, there's more pressure today on the College Board to make sure that you do that you're really focusing on giving people the best opportunity to succeed in their lives. And you feel the pressure of that, don't you?
I do, but, I'm just so proud of all of our universities. Being on the College Board has made me develop a great love for our university system and what it gives to our people in our community, our citizens. We have 8 great universities. And you can do just about anything at our universities. Anything that you could dream. You could go to a university in Mississippi. Now, I do like the University of Mississippi, but a university in Mississippi, and learn to do it, and come out, like you said, more than equipped to do what you need to do.
Well, Jeanne Luckey, I wish we had another hour. There's so much that we could explore, but we did what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell your story and talk about you as an example of defying the odds and persevering and committing to giving back to the community. And we did that. God bless you, my friend. Thanks for spending some time with me today.
God bless you too, Ricky. Thank you for having me on.
It's been a pleasure. This has been Jeanne Luckey. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.